Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Teas. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Teas at dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Hi guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Earnest James. And on my podcast, my guests and I discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. To deal with their problems, heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So check out our podcast. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even on Audible. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel at Deal to Heal with E. James Podcast. Until then, see you soon. Welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that the relationship between a father and a daughter is one of the most important relationships in a woman's life. And therefore, our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world and give love and support to all our dads and their daughters. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of our social media pages at the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And I'm going to tell you how you guys can win $100 from the podcast, but you got to stay into the end of the episode in order to get that information. Also, make sure that you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We share a YouTube channel with our partner podcast, the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which we just celebrated 100 episodes recently. So shout out to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. But if you go to YouTube under the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, you'll also see the playlist for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast under that same channel. So make sure that you guys are checking that out. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been doing anything else, but you took our time to be here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience and tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
All right. Well, my name is Merrick Smith, aka K Sarim. I am a actor. I am a musician. I am a business owner, but I am a girl dad first and foremost.
All right. See, the reason I said I didn't even try to say your name because I didn't. I see how it was spelled, and I was like, I ain't even try to pronounce that right.
Yeah, it's just Merrick backwards.
I know, but I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it gotta be pronounced correctly, Anyway, so so listen up, man. We just gonna have a conversation, man. First of all, of course, this is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, and we talk about fathers talking about our daughters and our relationship with our daughters. And so first of all, how many kids do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
One,
And do you have sons
one,
or just a daughter?
just one daughter.
Okay, all right. Because I've made it a thing in my head to make sure that I do acknowledge our sons, right?
Right.
Even though this is the Girl Dad podcast, and I'll be like, get right into the conversation, talk about the daughters, but I have four stepsons myself, so I'm like, okay, let me make sure that I start acknowledging our sons because we don't definitely don't want to, leave out our sons. But so you have one daughter. So what is your daughter's name?
Desiree.
Desiree. Okay, Desiree.
Yeah.
All right, my friend's daughter's name is Desiree. So shout out to the Desirees. So first of all, uh, let's go back a little bit. I always like to start at the beginning usually, and so your story is a little different than most of my fathers because one of the first questions that I usually ask is how did you find out that you were going to be a dad? But from previous, our conversation, you were already a dad before you knew you were a dad, right? And so
Right.
tell us a little bit about that story and how that even came into play.
Man, it's crazy. I didn't know. At that time, I was living in a different state. Um, I moved home. I had some things to do, take care of, like my mother and stuff. I had some things to do. So I moved. I wasn't aware of anything, and then like out of the blue, like 5 years later, uh, like like no, like 4 years later, I get a call. No, 5 years later, I get a call on a Monday morning. It had been so long I didn't even recognize her, like her voice, because we haven't spoke, we haven't did anything. No, we kept up no communication. Um, First thing I remember she saying was Desiree wasn't his, and I didn't really know what she was talking about. No, it was morning time. I was still kind of groggy, a little loopy,
Yeah.
and she basically was saying that who she thought the father was wasn't.
Mhm.
And so I agreed to come down, go back to the state, and take the paternity test. I actually stayed down there until I was able to get the results faster
Mhm.
or whatever. So that's basically what it was. When I found out, I've been 100 and 200, 300% forward. But
Right.
it
Right.
was it was it was very it was weird just out of the blue. But I didn't shun it. I just wish that I was there from the
Right.
beginning, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I was gonna ask because that's interesting, and I don't know how far y'all conversation went even to find the background of it to say like you said she was like it's not his. You was like okay who is he? You know what I mean? And what you know what I mean like like I said, I don't know what the background, but that's would have been the first question I asked. Like, okay, who is the other guy that you thought was the dad, and how did y'all even come to this, you know, situation? Maybe they was breaking up or whatever, and it was like, well, he ain't yours anyway. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully that wasn't it, but
No, it was more of someone, I guess, not wanting to look a certain way in my eyes or something. So I guess they didn't want to come forward or I really can't speak for that person.
right,
Only thing I can say is I did ask. I say, because I'm thrown for a loop. Who is he? What are you talking about? And so she explained it a little more, saying that her daughter name was Desiree. At that time, she was 3 months away from being four, from being like 4 years old. Um, and so I asked her, I'm like, so what are you trying to say? That that's my daughter? She was like, well, I want you to come take a paternity test. And so I said, okay, yeah, because in my eyes, I was just gonna go down there. I intended to pay for it. If it was my daughter, it was a blessing. If it wasn't, I just paid what $150 for you to leave me alone. And that was just my mentality. I'm sorry. I know that might not sound right, but I was willing to pay $150 for my peace because I
yeah,
didn't know what was going on.
right,
I get a call out the blue. It's a Monday morning. Make it so bad. The woman that I was talking to at the time was laying there in the bed next to me, so I gotta discuss things with her, and
Right.
it was like
Right.
one big
Yeah.
mess, one big
Yeah.
mess. So, um, but no, it was fine. I looked at it, at least she said something,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you got to say something when the courts make you say something, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty much what it was. They
Yeah.
said no more government assistance or support or whatever the case may be until we know exactly who's who.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
you know,
Okay. All
if it
right. Well,
wasn't, look, listen, if it wasn't for the government, I probably would have never known,
yeah, and
literally.
that's well.
And that sucks.
I would like to believe that you wouldn't have known because she didn't know, right? And so I would like to believe that. You know what I'm saying? Because if
Uh,
she started the conversation with it wasn't the other guys, maybe she thought it was, and that's why. You know what I mean? And I'm just playing devil's advocate because I want to believe the best. You know what I'm saying? And this is not
right.
a woman haters, you
No, no,
know,
not at all.
situation or nothing like that. So, we'll just leave it right there. I would like to believe that that's why, and we'll leave it there. But one of the things that one of my former guest, which also was the first guest on my Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And she also was the first female guest on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And she's a father coach who helps fathers reconnect with their daughters, right? And we connected actually on Instagram, and it's crazy because our dynamics are totally opposite. So I'm a father, and one of the things that I do as a speaker is I talk to fatherless daughters because I'm a fatherless daughter advocate, and she's a fatherless daughters who works with fathers, reconnecting with their daughters. And her father actually wasn't in her life, and it was a crazy dynamic. Anyway, but one of the things we talk about it is the reconnection phase, right? For fathers who, for whatever reason, haven't been active in their children's life, especially their daughters, and then they come back into their life at a years later or whatever the
Yeah.
time period has been. So just for you with that reconnection, or I don't even say reconnection, but just the first connection, with your daughter, just to be like, hey, you know what I mean? How was that whole situation? How did you guys work that out?
Um, through the courts, court ordered, but the initial meeting, it was just God. It was great. I was looking at me, you know.
Yeah,
Um, it was a happy moment for me. Any prior feelings I might have had or whatever was, none present out the door. But it was great. But but at the same token, it was hard trying to insert yourself after there has been years of absenteeism. So,
right.
and it's not that I didn't want to be there. It's just that the way that things unfolded, I didn't know. Maybe she didn't know or whatever. So
Right.
hey, um, but ever since the my first initial meeting with her, every time it's special. Every time it's golden, and I wouldn't change it. I hate the situation of how it came, but I wouldn't change it because if I changed it, I wouldn't have her.
Right.
So whatever happened, I'm fine with. I got her. So
Right.
it was great.
Yeah.
It is hard, um, being a non-custodial parent versus a custodial parent. And when the daughter lives with the mother, they sort of, go with that norm. And then
Hmm.
when you're trying to assert yourself, it's like, okay, well, what do I fit? Am I trying too much? I don't want to overdo things. I'm not trying to buy her love, but I love the fact that you're my daughter, and that and this is what making me happy
Right.
to do for you is to shower you with things. But then again, I have to remember that I don't want you thinking that I am trying to buy your love.
Right.
If that makes any sense,
No, no,
it's like
it
you
makes
want to do the
perfect sense.
most, but you don't.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. And I talk about my daughter. My daughter, when me and her mom got divorced, they moved to a different state. I'm in Chicago. I'm in the Chicagoland area. They moved from the Chicagoland area to Texas, and um, it was a conversation that we had. I had a conversation with my daughter. I think my daughter was maybe 10 at the time, and it was a conversation we had, and then a conversation I had with her mom, because her mom mentioned it to me that she wanted to move, to Texas, but here she couldn't do it without my consent, and so I talked to my daughter. I said, well, how do you feel about it? And she was okay with it, with the move or whatever. And so one of the things that came up for me is how it was explained to me was, I have a job there, I have better situation there, and opportunities was more a better opportunity for her mom,
Hmm.
and so I was like, well, I don't want to be the one, to get the blame why things don't go the way you want it to go. You know what I mean? Like if I say, no,
Yeah.
you got to stay here, and then things don't go your way, and then it's gonna be like,
Yeah.
oh, you did it, like
You
your
did
dad
this
did it,
right.
man,
Yeah.
we could have been living, whatever. And so I didn't want to be that person, So I
Yeah.
said, okay, cool, And so my daughter, since she was like I said, about 10, has lived in Texas, and now she's 20 and in college. But so I understand about not being the custodial parent. Even before they moved, it was a couple years that we were divorced, but we still stayed in the same city. You know what I'm saying? And so it still was that same thing as not being able to do as much as you want, because now again you got to go by the court, not necessarily go by the courts, but in some situations that's what it comes down to. And
Yeah.
so you got your days and you got the things that you want to do with her, and of course I had my daughter a lot, because like I said, we were in the same city, so it wasn't, I could go up to the school and things like that. So it's a little different. So would you guys, even that, did you stay in the same city, or did you move back, so y'all have like a long distance
No.
connection with your daughter?
Yeah. She's still more than 2 hours away from me.
Okay, okay, that
But when
makes
I
sense.
when I moved from that state with purpose because I had to take care of my mother,
Right,
who just recently passed. So from that time, is from then all the way up. I still had another responsibility, which was
right,
to
right,
take care of my mother. I've always said that since a child. That's what I was gonna do. Um, I didn't know because had I known that she was conceiving, we would have sat down, we would have talked, we would have tried to figure out the best route, right? But by me not knowing, I didn't have anything that was holding me there.
right,
So when I said, "Hey, I gotta go. This is what I have to do," I think she called herself getting mad. I'm not really sure, um, but I just had to go. And then when I found out I had a daughter, I couldn't drop the responsibilities that I had been doing for these years up until I found out about her. So I had to literally try to split myself in half the
yeah,
best way I could, and no sleep, driving back and forth, almost, going to sleep behind the wheel, buying two of everything because I don't want her to think it's a difference between being there and being here. It's just,
yeah,
it's kind of overwhelming, but at the end of the day, when my daughter smiled, you didn't feel that overwhelming sensation anymore. So it was
right,
all worth it.
right,
So we didn't get a chance, but no, me and my daughter's mother didn't get a chance to really like sit down and hash out anything. And so by that time, the course was already involved.
yeah,
So I couldn't sit down with her and come to a common ground. I had to sit before a judge and a mediator and come before common ground, which I thought kind of sucked.
Yeah.
We're two mature adults. We could have did this, you
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
things happen.
Right. Right. I wanna pause. I want to pause a little bit real quick because I want to go back to something that you said because I connected with it when you said it. And my condolences for you losing your mom. And
Thank you.
I lost my mom also, right, a couple years ago. Um, and so one of the things that you just said, which is crazy, you said one of the things that you said you had to take care of your mom, that you said that since you were as a kid, right? And
Yes.
so my mom, and this is funny, and this I know that God has a sense of humor. And when we grew up in the church, right? And one of the things that we would do, we would go to nursing homes and to different places and have church with the residents, who a lot of times didn't family didn't come see them and things like that. And so I remember my mom used to always say, it's nine of us. I got eight siblings, so it's nine of us. But my mom used to always say, I hope nothing ever happens to me that y'all have to take care of me. Right. And
Hmm.
but you kind of said it with a negative type thing, like she didn't believe that we would take care of her. And so she, since we was like really young, like she would always say that. And we always be like, Mom, we got you. If anything ever
Right.
happens, not thinking that, anything would or hoping or anything like that, but it was always like, "Ma, we got you." And fast forward years later, and my mom got sick. She actually had cancer, and by the time that we found out what it was too late for them to do anything about it. And so we did have a couple months, with my mom, and we took care of her. She stayed at home. It's like I said, it's nine of us, so we took turns around the clock, with my dad to make sure that one of us was there, to help take care of my mom at all times. And plus, my mom was a minister also, so we had the people from the church that also came to volunteer to help, look after my mom. And so that just struck me when you said that you, even in your story from a little child, you had that same mindset, like, I got you. If anything to happen, was there a reason why you had that in your mind, or that was just like,
What? No, it's because my mother had a total of five children. Um, four girls, one boy. I'm the youngest.
mm,
She know that she has raised me with enough strength to know that I'm going to get things done. She knows that she just knows who I am. I'm going to get it done, especially if she wants it done. But she would also ask me when I was younger, "Are you going to take care of Mama when Mama get old and things of that nature?" And yes, no question, yes, yes. And it's always been my answer. And when she needed me, I did exactly what I said I was going to do because I'm true to my word. I love my mom with all my heart in the world. There's nothing I wouldn't do for her. Um, I had responsibilities. That's how I was raised. If you say you're going to do something, then you do it. You have morals. You have values. You have what makes you you. And if you can't stand on who you are, then who are you? And I was raised to know who I am, know how to apply myself and move forward. And that's exactly what I did. She needed me. I took off.
yeah, yeah. And I'm glad to hear you say that. And again, my condolences to you, and my appreciation, to you for actually doing what you said you were going to do. Because like I said, that when you said it touched me, because
Yeah,
I had that same story, and that was one of my things. Like, even though we never said it out loud, and even
yeah,
myself, I never said it out loud, but it was in the back. It always was in the back of my mind, like, yeah, Mom, I'm gonna prove you wrong. If anything happens
yeah,
to you, you're gonna be surprised. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
we gonna hold you down, and I'm glad to hear that you did that, and as well as we did. And I just wanted to touch on that because that came up, and even in this podcast, even though we're talking about daughters, we still talking as parents and as
Yeah,
children, right? As
yeah,
people, and I want to make sure that we always delivering. in this podcast, something that we can walk away with, something that the listeners can walk away with, because we got some young fathers and some young dads, and whose parents may still be here. You know what I'm saying? Who haven't faced that yet. I remember, I might be getting off the topic a little bit, so forgive me, but I remember around the time when my mom had passed away, listening to Bishop T.D. Jakes do a sermon, and it was around Mother's Day, and he was saying how people was telling him, I feel sorry for you because you lost your mom, and so forth and so on. And he was like, don't feel sorry for me. I feel sorry for you because I know a pain that you don't even know yet. You know what I'm saying? Like I've lived
Yeah.
it, I've kind of worked through it, and you know what I'm saying, I've adjusted, but you haven't even started. You know what I'm saying? Because your mom is still here. And so I often think about that, and of course people do say, my condolences and things like that. But I even having a conversation with one of my cousins one day, he's like, man, I don't know what I would do, if something happened to my mom. And I'm like, well,
No one does.
you might want to start thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? Because one day it may happen, and you have to be in the mindset to say, okay, if something happens, will I be able to, step up to the plate and take care of my mom or whatever it is, and not
Um,
just like be blindsided by it because you don't want to, what I'm saying,
it
face that.
to me, you will never be able to prepare yourself. You can sit here and understand that we all have we're all
Mhm.
entered into a lottery the moment we're born, and the
Right.
and the prize is death. Okay, there's no way getting around it. It's just what it is. But you will never ever be able to prepare yourself for what's to come when it comes to
Right.
the matter of losing a parent. There's no talks that you can have. There's no videos that you can watch. There's nothing that's going to prepare you. You can talk to yourself as much as you want, but until it actually happens,
Yeah.
that's when you know what you're going to do,
Yeah.
and your true character will flourish. Your true character will come out when you're hit with that type of adversity, that type of pain. And it really is a pain. My mother just passed May 3rd of this year. My father passed 5 years ago, February 25th, 2018. Honestly, I'm still hurt. I'm not who I used to be. I'm
Yeah.
trying to find who I used to be. And I probably won't, because when she left, a piece of me also left as well. So I'm dealing with a new norm, but
Right.
you'll never be able to get yourself prepared for that particular moment. It's like
Right.
losing a child or losing a parent. Those are two of the most heartfelt feelings that you're ever gonna feel.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And so when I say, think about it, is because to and just with the conversation I was having with him, is that he was at the point where, like, I don't even want to think about it, and I'm like, well, you know what I'm saying? Not saying that you'll never be prepared for it, because even when we found out about my mom, and it was like, okay, we knew we had limited time at that point. When it still came to the end, it was just like, man, you know what I'm saying? It's still, what I'm saying? And the crazy part, and we just definitely going off the subject, but
Yeah, I
the,
know.
the crazy part is the night my mom passed, I moved from Chicago to Indiana, basically right across the state line in Hammond, right
Okay.
across the state line. And I drove back to the house, and I was there for a couple hours with my mom, and we were all there. The family was there, kind of just hanging out. And I said, "All right, mom, I'm about to go." You know what I mean? And so I left, and it probably take about 30 minutes to get from my mom's house to my house. By the time I got to my house and was open up to the door to walk in my house, my dad called me and said, "Come back to the house. Your mom just passed." Just in that 30-minute
It's
window.
quick.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so definitely going back to what you were saying, like, even when you know it's coming, you still can't
You
prepare for
can't.
it.
You
You know
you
what I'm
can't.
saying?
It's
It's just
impossible.
it's yeah, it's just a whole nother thing. And and like I said, I don't want to get too far from our thing, but like I said, as fathers, with daughters, and as fathers who are sons, because we have mothers, we have fathers, you know what I mean. It's a reality that we have to deal with, and God forbid that any of us would have to lose a child. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, that's the only thing you can even equate it with. You know what I'm saying? With losing a parent is losing a child, because there's two of the one of them is the person you came from, and the other one is the person that came from you. You know what I'm saying? So it's the only thing that can kind of equate, and it's a pain that I don't wish on anyone. You know,
Not at all.
my father is still here, and I'm grateful, definitely grateful that he's still here and well. Um, but yeah, it's just a reality that we have to think about a little bit. So anyway, we're gonna switch it up
All
real
right,
quick.
let's
We'll
switch
switch
it
it
up.
back. We're gonna switch it back. So the reason one of the things coming from that was, you mentioned about you had responsibilities, and so you couldn't just drop everything and move. And I remember, so I actually got remarried, right, until to a young lady who had four sons, and that's how I have four stepsons. And so I remember, even as my daughter got older, again, she lives in Texas, and she's like, "Dad, I want you to come move down here with me, so you can be closer to me." And I'm like, "I got a whole situation up here." You know what I mean? Like, I can't just
Yeah,
be like, "All right, I'm up." I'm like, it ain't that easy. It's easier for me
it's
to see
not.
you and bring you here than it is for me to drop everything and go there. And it's just a conversation that I don't know how old your daughter is now, but it was just a conversation that we had to have actually for a couple of years before it was like, "Look, baby, I can't just drop everything and move to Texas." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, if I could have, I would have, but I wasn't able to. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
now, my mother, she passed. My daughter's 15.
Okay.
Um, 15 going on 45.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, the attitude, the match, and everything. Um, but no, it's you can't. It's extremely hard, and it's even harder to get them to understand why you can't. They
Yeah.
don't see the other side. They just see you not there, and it's very hard to know that if that's what they want, but you can't facilitate it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and is just hard conveying that you can't. They
Yeah.
don't understand. No matter how you try to sit down and break it down word for word, section for section, they just feel the pain that they have here, and they want their father, they want their mother. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah. And like I said, it was a conversation I had with my daughter, not necessarily recently, but I would say, like I said, she just turned 20 this year, and we probably had it up until she was like 18 and 19. She was out of high school then. Even after she graduated high school, and before she went away to college, it still was the same thing. Like, "Hey, Dad, I'm grown now. Yeah, you could come." And it's like, I still just can't. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
then that's what I was really telling her. I'm like, "Look, you're in a prime position now, because now you're out of school. Now you can come." You know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
it's like, but it didn't necessarily go that way. But yeah, it's a conversation that we have sometimes, and we have to just convey. And one thing that I always tell dads, is just make sure that you're showing up when you can. Because I remember, even when my daughter, even before FaceTime and Messenger, when I think we did have Messenger, but even before FaceTime and all that, actually before Messenger too, my daughter used to call me, and I would help her with her homework over the phone. You know what I mean? Like, she would have
hmm
math, and she would take a picture of it and send it to me, and so I'm looking at the picture, and then we would call and talk on the phone, and I would, work with her through her homework, over the phone. And we did that sometimes. And so just whatever you have to do to be present, you know what I'm saying? And like, technology now makes it a lot easier, because now you do have FaceTime and Messenger and things like that, where you can actually see the child and talk to her. But my that's just been my thing. Just like whatever you have to do, just make sure you show up. We can't be everything to our daughters as much as we want to be, but we can be the best that we can be. And I think that when we show up as ourselves and we show up definitely putting forth the effort, that even though they don't get, you know, exactly what they want, they're able to say, but I know he's doing his best. I know that he's delivering to me the best version of himself. And so I think there's really there's nothing more that our daughters can ask of us, you know. Um, so I'm gonna switch it up real quick. And I know I just thought about this because I forgot to send you I forgot to send you our uh my ebook. I forgot to send you the ebook, which is the core four, right? So our next segment, our closing segment that we do with the podcast is called Getting to the Core. And so I wrote
Okay.
an ebook called The Four Core, which is the four core values that every daughter should receive from her father. And so those core values are guidance, love and affection, affirmation, and protection. And so generally, like I said, I forgot to send it to you, and my apology. I send it to you after this. But so I usually have the fathers read over it, read through it beforehand, and give their version of it, or what's important to them out of the four core. And then the next question would ask that if it was a fifth core, that you could add, what would that be? And so just even though you can either speak on the values, just a matter of fact, just however you feel as a value that you want to instill in your daughter from you as her father, what would be one of those values?
To be herself, to honestly be herself. You wasn't put here to please everyone because you can't please everyone. But what you can do is you can please yourself because you're in control of your happiness. And
Mhm.
as long as you know that you're in control of your happiness, no one can rob you of your happiness. No one can steal it from you. And I believe that through it all that we go through, you got to smile. And then things in this world will make you not want to smile. Things in this world will make you bitter, upset, but that's only if you let it. And that's what needs to also be understood is your morals and values. Stand on them because they are what makes you you.
Yeah, 100, 100. So to the listeners, make sure you guys go to ebooks by ejames.com. That's ebooks by ejames.com. So you can pick up your own copy of the Core Four, which is the four core values that every daughter should get from her father. Man, we've had a great conversation. Did get sidetracked a little bit,
Yeah, I know.
but I think it needed to be said, and definitely needed to be acknowledged, with your efforts, and making sure that you was a stand-up son as well as a stand-up father. And I think that's important. That's why I wanted to touch on that. But I want you to do me a favor. I want you to have the last word. I want you to leave
Yeah.
our fathers or our daughters, either one, with a word of advice, or just something that off the top of your head, or from your heart, that to a father who may find himself in your position one day, who found out, having much time had passed before they found out that they was the father, or something like that. What is some advice or something that you may give them? So I want you to have that last word. So I'll let you think about that for a second. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, man. And we just love having conversations with girl dads and talking about daughters and fathers. And definitely by the time this came out, would have already had our first daughters on the podcast talking about their fathers and things of that. So we're definitely opening it up and wanted to be versatile to really build that awesome girl dad, uh, daddy and daughter relationship, with our daughters. So make sure that you guys are definitely checking us out or thank you for checking us out. Also, make sure that you guys subscribe to our text line. You want to text the word subscribe to the number 866-326-0730 to receive text messages about new episodes, new ebooks, ebook releases, and things of that nature. Also, we are I've been blessed to be a part of a organization called the Forgiveness Mission, and one of the things that we do, we have free virtual workshops every quarter of the year talking about forgiveness, and we talk about forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, what it means, who is forgiveness for. And I think that is very important. And I think that's something that we all should uh, really pass on to our daughters as well as ourselves, the ability to be able to forgive. And so especially with our fathers, and situations like these, like we mentioned about not being able to drop everything and come, you know what I mean, and them feeling some type of way about that, but being able to not only talk to them about, hey, I can't do it, but not holding it against ourselves because we want to, but we just not in a position to do it. So that's one of the things, just forgiveness. We talk about forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, what is forgiveness, who is forgiveness for. Very in-depth conversation. I think that everyone should check it out. Again, that's the Forgiveness Mission. We have free virtual workshops every quarter of the year. So whenever you're listening to this, either one just ended or one is coming up. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com to check that out, or go to Eventbrite and look up the Forgiveness Workshop, and you will be able to see it. Last but not least, I told you guys that I would tell you how you can win $100 from the podcast, and you can win $100 by joining our I can't even talk super subscriber contest. You can win $100 by joining our entering our super subscriber contest. So what must you do? First, you must subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook page, and also to our podcast on Spotify. After you've done those three things, text the word win, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730 to qualify to win $100. The contest is random and it's ongoing. So once you're in, you can always win. You don't have to re-up or anything like that. Once you've done once you made the 3 subscriptions, and text the word win to the number 866-326-0730, you'll always have a chance, as long as we're on the air, to win $100. And if you do it, you actually have a chance to win $100 from both podcasts, from the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions with E. James podcast. So definitely want you guys to check that out. So, man, Mr. Smith, thank you again for being on. Amazing conversation, man. I know, like I said, I know we kind of veered off a little bit, but I think it needed to be said, and I think that it's still going to add some much value to my listeners, because it definitely added value to me, and I appreciate you being on. I let you have the last word, so the floor is yours.
All right. Well, I will have to say, as a father, there will be times to where you won't feel the unconditional love that you think that you are going to receive. And don't worry about that, because you had parents that were here to show you unconditional love. And what your whole plan is to be, take that love that was shown to you. Now you have to show it to the other version of yourself, which is your children. So don't get wrapped up in, if you feel that, oh, they don't care about me. That's not it. Everyone grows at a different pace. Everyone sees the world differently. That's what makes us unique. Um, we all have, we have to learn. So you have to be patient, communicate, and love more than you would yell. But don't try to be the friend, because you're still the parent. And it has to be a clear cut respect level of that. And I see too many times where friendships and the parenting gets blurred, and now the kid is kind of out of control, or does exactly what they want to do, and they might not listen to you, and something happens that you could have avoided by not being that given that much leeway, so to say.
Mhm.
So I would say, um, just talk, love, teach your children values, morals, and scruples, because those three things, they're kind of becoming extinct in the generations that I'm seeing. So don't give up, because the moment you give up, they gave up. They just don't know it yet.
Right. All right, all right. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James. I'm your host, Earnest James, and I want you guys to have a blessed day. Until the next time we meet again, you guys be blessed.
Stay blessed.